You're watching Let the Quran Speak, and now we answer your questions. If you have a question, visit our website, QuranSpeaks.com. Dr. Shabir, the question is, what's the point of praying to Allah when Allah has closed his eyes to the suffering of Palestinian Muslims? That's a hard question from one of our viewers.
Yeah, of course, from a faith perspective, we wouldn't say that Allah has closed his eyes. In fact, and of course, we don't think of God having physical eyes like ours with eyelids that would close and open. But we know that God sees all things. He's aware of all situations. And
probably the commentator or the person asking the question didn't mean physically. It just means
he means
God is ignoring or not paying attention or not doing anything
oblivious
to help.
To what's going on. Yeah. So God is not oblivious to what is going on. But God's plan is beyond what we can comprehend. And he has his own reasons for allowing things to be as they are. So one grand reason, Safia, is that God has put into place a system of cause and effect. It's what we are able to study through science. And if things did not work in a systematic way, then we wouldn't be able to study things scientifically. We wouldn't be able to have any good scientific hypotheses, and these wouldn't rise to the level of theory, because we put water on the stove and we turn on the stove and the water eventually boils, and then we can have a theory about how the water molecules are heated up and so on. But if every time we have cold water and we want warm water, we don't have to put it on the stove because God just simply makes it warm for us. So we just go and we have warm water as to our desire. That seems great for us, but it's not good for science. We wouldn't be able to control our world ourselves. And by studying through the world through science, we get better control of the world. So if there is going to be an earthquake happening, we know through our studies to detect the earthquake and to take measures to alleviate suffering that could result from the earthquake. So we gain in knowledge as human beings, and we gain in power as human beings, and God is doing that for us. Whereas the other way is to just baby us, protect us as we would protect our little babies in their cradles. But we can't keep our babies as babies for long. But God could have kept us in an infantile state of existence if He wanted. But is that what we want? So God is empowering us by giving us knowledge and the power that comes with that knowledge. And the flip side of that is that, yes, there will be things that God is expecting us to do and leaving us to do because He has created the system and He's not going to intervene and upset the system. Now, the real situation on the ground is that human beings have responsibility. We can see the suffering of the people of Gaza, and we can ask ourselves, what are we doing as human beings? And the responsibility falls back on us. We can't say to God, why aren't you intervening? Because it is human beings who are inflicting this harm on our fellow humans. And then there are other human beings, the rest of us, who are standing by and not doing enough to alleviate the suffering of the people and to prevent the genocide from ongoing.
So, Dr. Shabir, the other thing is that we know that, as you mentioned, Allah has a plan. God has a plan, and that plan encompasses not just this life, but the life hereafter. And it's also a plan that even if it was just for this life, we wouldn't even be able to understand it just because of our own limited perspective. So I think that's important to keep in mind too, that maybe we just don't understand the grand plan that God has.
Yes, and of course, some people will speak of this as if God, planned for the Gazans to suffer. I wouldn't put it this way. I would say that God is allowing this suffering as part, of the grand plan. That this could have happened or that could have happened. Gaza could have been attacked. Gaza could not have been attacked. So these are possibilities, and God has allowed for this possibility. If He wanted to prevent it totally, He could eliminate that from the plan of possibilities from the very inception. But He has allowed certain possibilities which are not pleasing to Him, but which may nonetheless result in some good effects. And while it looks horrible to us at the moment, we cannot calculate the totality of all of the good effects that will come about as a result of this. Again, I'm not saying that God said, okay, let me plan for the Gazans to be decimated so that we get all of these good effects. But I'm saying that the alternative could have been something worse. The alternative to this happening could have been a worse atrocity. But God is allowing this one because this one is like the best of the evils, you might say.
Because we live in an imperfect world.
Yes, we live in an imperfect world. This is the lesser of two evils. So God is allowing this as a lesser of two evils because this one will produce some good effects, bad as it is at the moment. So good effects. We can see many, many good effects coming as a result of this. One very obvious thing is that the world is amazed at the resilience of the people of Gaza and their unwavering faith. We see people staring at their homes which have been demolished. The people are reeling from the fact that their families have been killed, but they come out saying, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, praise be to God, Lord of the worlds. And whatever the circumstances, they're still saying, praise be to God. They still have their faith in God. It's a lesson for Muslims worldwide. And Muslims are actually taking a lesson. We see the mosques this past Ramadan filled more than before. It looks like there could be other factors, like we're just coming out of the COVID lockdowns and so on, which has, the effects of that have lingered with us for a couple of years. But to a certain extent, it is the fact that the Gazans are being afflicted like this is causing Muslims elsewhere to awaken to their faith. And seeing the resilience and the faithfulness of the Gazan people, Muslims are taking a lesson from this and gravitating towards worship and towards the mosque. But
I've seen personally, like Muslims have told me that they are going back to the mosque, they're coming back to their faith as a result of what they saw happening in Gaza. And of course, many people who are not Muslim are embracing Islam for the first time because they're seeing the appeal, right?
Yes.
These people are living Islam in the best way, and they're thinking, oh, like, this is amazing. Islam is, it's not strange, it's not weird, it's beautiful, and it could lead to beautiful effects in your life.
Yes, and many more are coming to understand the history of Palestine, the suffering of the Palestinian people on the whole, Gazans in particular, and they're sympathizing with that cause. We see the massive rallies, in which massive numbers of non-Muslims are participating. So it's bringing about a new awakening, and for all of these good reasons, we can say God is not turning a blind eye to the people of Gaza, to use a metaphor myself, but He is quite aware, but He's allowing it for good reasons. It's not the best, and He wants us to take responsibility to bring an end to this atrocity.
All right. Thank you for that, Shabir.
You're welcome.
The most effective, the most far-reaching dawah we can do these days is on social media. At Muslim Media Hub, we're harnessing the power of media to spread the message of Islam. Want to get some reward from God? Support this mission. Check us out at muslimmediahub.com.